All right, so I'm Jeremy Langley. I'm a third-year sport management major, and I'm just here to talk to you a little bit about my internship experience over the summer of 2013. So what I did was I worked for a baseball team that's affiliated with the Kansas City Royals. They're single-A team down in Wilmington, Delaware. What I did, or the job description, I was the assistant clubhouse manager. Essentially, I was responsible for making sure that the players had whatever they need. It's not a servant type deal. It's really, we have the authority in the locker room. There's certain places that the baseball players can't get to, the equipment closet, all those types of things, and they have to go through us for those things. So the goals of this internship for me going into it, the first was to learn what it means to be a clubhouse manager. I really had no idea. I thought that it was just some guy that stood at the door and made sure the people who were in the clubhouse were supposed to be in the clubhouse. So I really wanted to learn what that actually meant. I wanted to broaden my realm of sport management. I'm really focused in marketing right now. When I took this internship, I fully knew that it was not a marketing internship. But I really wanted to make my sport management spectrum wider. I wanted to look and see what else there was in my major. I wanted to make connections and networks. This is kind of obvious. I look for this in everything that I do. I just wanted to meet some people that maybe down the road could help me out, or I could help them out. But I've always been on the outside of baseball as a spectator, looking in, seeing what I see on the TV and what's portrayed through ESPN. And I wanted to see what happens, on the underground of that, and to just have fun. So I'm going to go into depth on each one of these parts a little bit later. But a normal day consisted of 7 things: shopping, preparation, field prep, game time, dinner, cleanup, and then sleep. Probably the most important one on there, as you'll see, because this is a pretty long day. Part 1 was shopping. What we'd do is we'd wake up, depending on game time. A normal game time was 7 o'clock. We'd actually have to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning for a 7 p.m. game. Before every homestand, we would go out and do about $500 worth of grocery shopping. This was to buy peanut butter, sunflower seeds, chewing gum, stuff that won't go bad over the course of a homestand. On top of that $500, every single day we spent at least $150 on stuff like pineapple, cantaloupes, anything that will go bad. So I mean, for a 5-game homestand, you're looking at $500 plus, another $750 just for 5 days. So these guys pretty much chow down on everything. Like I said, fruits and vegetables, peanut butter, bubble gum, and sunflower seeds. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, there's huge buckets of double bubble. It's about 350 pieces in one bucket. I remember one homestand we went through 12 buckets just for the home team. We don't provide it to the away team. Preparation. This is probably one of the skills I've used the most so far, since I don't actually have a job in sport management as of right now. I learned how to cut up a pineapple. You would not believe how hard that is to do without a pineapple core. Essentially what we did in the morning was we came in and we cut up all that fruit. We made a hot meal in like a crock pot. That's pretty easy. We'd fold towels, replace broken bats. And I'll show you guys some pictures of the clubhouse later, but the amount of bats that these guys go through, you see like maybe one bat break in a game, and you're like, oh man, that stinks, now they have to replace that. I swear, these guys don't even think about it. In the warm-ups, they're like hitting these bats off of wooden poles and hitting them on the chairs and stuff. Obviously, they're going to break when they're taking BP. The next thing was the field prep. Along with getting the locker room ready for the players and getting the food ready, we also had to get stuff on the field for batting practice. We weren't responsible for mowing or putting out the bases or anything like that. But we had to bring out all the batting practice stuff. So they put out the cage, but then we'd bring out all the bats, all the baseballs, everything. They use different things for batting practice every day. One thing you have to remember is these guys don't practice. There's no such thing as practice for these guys. So their batting practice / warm-up is their practice. So if the coach decides one day their defense is bad, rather than taking BP, they're going to go out and they're going to do a defensive session. So you have to figure out from the coach what they're doing and bring out the equipment based on that. And also we were responsible for making sure the umpires had what they needed. We'd bring the baseballs over to the umpire's locker room probably 3 hours before the game, and we'd mud them all. Essentially, we'd bring over 12 boxes of baseballs, and we'd go through every single one and put mud on them and mud them down. So that way they were ready to go. And then we'd set up the post-batting practice spread. You have to remember, these guys are there we get there at 7, they come in at 8 o'clock. And if a game goes into extra innings, they may not leave until 1, 2 o'clock the next morning. So we have to be ready to feed them all their meals for the whole day. So after batting practice, we get them their spread ready. And then obviously we have to clean that up. Part 4, game time. Literally the easiest part of the day. I was responsible for nothing except for getting the coach coffee in between innings. Vance Wilson, just an interesting fact, he was the coach for this team, and he used to back up Mike Piazza for the New York Mets. In 2007, I believe it was, he played 96 games. Or 2003, sorry, because Mike Piazza was hurt. But this dude crushes coffee. He went through a cup of coffee every single inning. By the end of the game, if he wasn't thrown out, he was sitting in the dugout tweaking out because he was so caffeine high. So we'd watch 7 innings of that. Then comes the next part, dinner. Like I said, these guys can eat. It's a 30-man roster, give or take, depending on who's hurt, who's getting sent up. Sometimes they call guys up from Omaha, and it takes them a while to get there, so we might be down a guy. But essentially, we prepared for 30, including the coaches. It was catered by a restaurant on the 3rd floor, so actually it made it really easy for us. We'd just go upstairs, grab a tray, bring it down, set it all up. The average cost for one of these meals was like almost $600. And thank goodness the Kansas City Royals comped that meal. This is a good place to kind of talk about how a clubhouse manager works. A clubhouse manager is not hired by the major league affiliate. They work as an independent contractor. So what they do is they go in the clubhouse, they get their own office, they have to collect dues from the players. So he typically charged $50 a game. So if they had a 5-game homestand, it was $50 for every one of those games. He then takes that money, uses it to buy all the groceries and all that stuff. Then what he has left over after all that is what he makes for that week. So these guys aren't making thousands and thousands of dollars. They're making whatever they can save on the grocery bill. So they really have to, these meals that get comped by the Royals definitely help out. And then cleanup. 7 o'clock game, normal end time was 10 to 11. We had to clean up the food from dinner. They eat a lot, and they also get a lot on the floor. For some reason, after a baseball game, they have a hard time getting the fork to their mouth, so that it's always all over the floor. So we clean the carpets, we vacuum, and then do it like a deep rug carpet cleaner or whatever. We clean the bathrooms, wash uniforms, hang uniforms. The uniforms we actually start washing well before the end of the night, because they have practice warm-ups and the actual game uniform. So as soon as they're done batting practice, we start washing their practice jerseys and their practice pants. Or shorts, whatever the coach decided to let them wear that day. The other thing we do is we do their personal loops. Essentially, it's a strap with a buckle. You throw all your personal clothes on it. Whatever you can fit on there, we'll wash. Whatever doesn't fit on there, we can't wash. We had some issues with that because the buckles like to come undone sometimes, and all these guys have the same exact undershirt because it's provided by the Royals. But we figure it out. And then 7. Typically would get home between 12 and 1. I remember there was one game we worked and it went into 14 innings, and I didn't get home until almost 6 o'clock the next morning. We pretty much went home, ate breakfast, turned around, and went back to the stadium. It's a tough job, and the hours are not consistent. However, it is nice because when they're at home, you have to work those crazy hours, but when they're on the road, you can either go with them or you can stay home and you get that whole away stand off. So there is some downtime. You just have to work really hard when they're at home. So the next part of this presentation is kind of just a tour of the stadium. I was able to get a look at the stadium that not very many people actually get to see. So I figured I'd share that with you guys. So the field. It's Daniel S. Frawley Stadium. The field is gorgeous. You guys watch baseball on TV and you're like, oh man, that field looks really nice. You have no idea until you step on one of these or see how much work actually goes into it. There was parts of the field that they were redoing every single day. Whatever spot got worn down the most, they were out there putting in new sod and making sure that it was ready to go for game time. I mean, you could literally fall asleep on the grass. It was so soft. Then on your stadium level, you have the store, the bathrooms, you got all your clubhouse stuff. The interesting part about the store, and actually one of the skills I took away from this, we had to stitch nameplates onto the back of players' jerseys. However, my boss didn't know how to do that. So what I had to do was go to the team store, and they actually taught me how to stitch nameplates onto jerseys. In single A baseball, you see different guys every single game. I mean, there is seriously, between trades and people getting called up or pulled down, you see a different roster every single time you hit the field. I remember there was one homestand where we took 6 jerseys, took the nameplates off all those 6, replaced them with 6 different names. Then by the end of the week, 3 of the people who had left at the beginning of the week were back, and 3 that had come in were gone. So, I mean, you constantly change the nameplates. And in the major leagues, they're, for the most part, they're stitched on letter by letter. But those guys are consistent, and they're up there all the time. These nameplates, they're literally a piece of fabric that's a rectangle, and you just stitch the rectangle on. This is the locker room. This picture up here is just the entrance. These are the bathrooms in there. That's actually the storage closet that I was talking about. All those boxes on the right there, each one of them holds 20 bats. So there's all those, and then a picture I wasn't actually able to get. That door right there goes back to another storage room, and it's all shelves, all stacked with baseball bats. So they're ready, and baseballs, sorry. There's baseballs back there as well. They're ready for pretty much anything. Probably the safest place to be during a zombie apocalypse. More of the locker room. Every guy got their own locker. There was, I believe, 35 lockers, though. And like I said, we only carry about 30 players at a time. So the way they play it in this league is essentially whoever's made it farther up the food chain gets the best lockers. So if you look here, there's corner lockers there. Those are both actually owned by the same person. Tyler Lamb was his name. He made it to the big leagues. He pitched 1 inning ever, and he had to get Tommy John surgery, so he's back down in single A. But he's made it to the big leagues. They give him 2 lockers. It's a respect type deal. And that's something that you have to consider when you're doing all this. We set up the lockers, so we have to make sure that we know how far each one of these guys has been, because if we have a guy who's made it to the AAA, he gets a small locker, and then we have some guy who just got drafted this year and he's getting 2 lockers. I mean, that's not going to go over well in the locker room. Merchandise. I just kind of threw this in there because you would not believe how much stuff they give out at these things. I mean, you go to a game and they're giving out 1,000 bobbleheads. They do that every single game. They do something like that every single game. This on the left here, that's everything I got just from being in the clubhouse. I mean, there's a broken bat there from a guy who hit a home run. A couple Kansas City hats, a blanket, like 6 or 7 T-shirts. I mean, they just give this stuff out like nothing. It's essentially marketing for them. And just kind of a funny story. That on the right there is Parker Moran's locker. He was the catcher. When they come out with the baseball cards, they give each player like 50 of them. So, of course, as soon as it happens, you have to remember these guys are 19 and 20 years old. They're going around and they're like, oh, look, my face is on a baseball card, and they start trading them with each other. So what Parker did was he got one from every person on the team, and he hung them up. And then that picture in the middle is Mitch Foley. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he's like a former wrestler. And one of the most random things they ever did at the stadium was they set up a wrestling stadium in the middle of the field. And they did that as like a pre-game promotion. So if you bought a ticket to the game, you got to come watch Mitch Foley fight someone. It was like the most ridiculous thing, but there was 4 guys in there who were like amped about it. All they wanted to do was go out and see this guy fight and like get his autograph. So they finally got his autograph, and then they taped all the coaches' baseball cards to it because they were all pissed about it. So kind of just to reflect, what I learned is sport management is an extremely widespread field. It really ranges from everything. I mean, like I said, I want to do marketing, but you have everything from marketing to clubhouse management to and everything in between. I mean, there's guys who work in the clubhouse but are media relations, so they're only there for the media. You have the programmers who program all this, Mitch Foley coming to the stadium. So it's really a widespread field. Kind of some life lessons. Living on your own is not that easy. People are like, oh, it's awesome, just get a roommate. But sometimes it's not an option when you're 10 hours away from where you live, It's definitely, I learned a lot about just living on your own and, having to fend for yourself. Facilities management is an extremely hard but rewarding job. By the end of this experience, I felt like I was part of the team. They'd win a game and they'd come in, and the first thing they do is find me and Josh was my boss, and give us high fives and say, you guys did a great job today. And you don't think about it, but if we weren't in there giving these guys food and getting these guys what they needed, they'd be doing it all themselves and probably not being as focused on the game. So anything that they can do to keep focus on the game, they appreciate it, and they thanked us for it. So it was kind of nice. Like, if we won, we felt awesome. If we lost, we actually felt like we lost, even though we didn't do anything except for help them with their food and whatnot. Like I said, as the clubhouse manager, the players considered you a teammate. Kyle Smith was a pitcher for them. He actually got traded to the Houston Astros a month after I left. But on their off days, I used to go out to the 18-plus clubs with him. I mean, you really make a connection with these guys because you are around them all the time. And the last thing I learned from this experience is this is actually not where I intend my degree to bring me. I was excited for the new opportunity, but I also realized coming out of it that if I got into this field, I wouldn't be enjoying my job to the fullest. This is definitely something for someone who's interested in facilities management. But the other thing is to take from this, and this is for all you guys who haven't had an internship yet, or you're having another one. If it doesn't go the way you want it to, you're still learning something. You still get out of it that you don't want to do that. And it kind of narrows down your choices. There's a ton of choices in sport management, and the only way to figure out what you want to do is to narrow it down a little bit. And that's all I have for you guys.